good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from today. And thank you for joining us for this webinar on Thunderbird School of Global Management's Global Challenge Labs, our client-facing project-based practicum. As I see many of you that I now know, many of you will know who I am. My name is Dr. Adam Henry, and I have the honor of being Thunderbird's Executive Director of Enrollment and Student Success. When we talk to prospective students about our graduate programs and current students as well, we always highlight the unique experience that our programs provide students from a global standpoint. And I'm thrilled today that our topic is all about just that, our Global Challenge Labs, a 3-week international consulting project that is built into our Master of Global Management program, our 4+1 Master of Global Management program, and then our Executive Master of Global Management students also get to participate in kind of a variation of a Global Challenge Lab. Throughout today's presentation, please use the Q&A box to ask questions, and either myself or my colleague Charles will be happy to reply and to get all of your questions answered. I know that from looking at who's joining us right now, we have many of our new incoming fall 2020 students, which is very exciting. So we want to welcome you, and you are already getting ahead of everyone else with regards to kind of knowing more about what a Global Challenge Lab is going to look like. My colleague today is Charles Reeves, who will be sharing with us all about our Global Challenge Lab. Charles is Thunderbird's Executive Director of Applied Learning and has over 9 years of professional experience, largely working in international business development and consulting fields. Charles holds a bachelor's degree in business admin from the University of Alabama and an MBA from the Thunderbird School of Global Management. So he is a T-Bird himself. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Charles to provide you with more details about our Global Challenge Labs. And then of course, we want to make sure that in our 45 minutes together today that we answer all of your questions. Please welcome Charles.
Right, thanks everyone. Thanks Adam for that intro. It's always a real pleasure to be here with folks who are thinking about coming to Thunderbird, or in a lot of y'all's case, that we look forward to seeing in the fall, and which also means that you'll be seeing me and you'll be seeing more of the Challenge Lab. So we're excited about that. This is what we're here to talk about, but this Challenge Lab, I think, is really the prime expression of the Thunderbird mission, in which we get you out there in the world and fully immersed with a global client system that is looking to either grow or become more sustainable or serve more people better or serve and steward the environment better. So we'll be talking all about that. I want to take just a second and sort of thank Adam and the team and really all the Thunderbird community for keeping everything going forward with a lot of momentum during this 2020 year that none of us would have maybe chosen, but nevertheless we are here and we're doing our best through that. Also want to thank you all and really take a second and say, you know what, congratulate yourselves, because you're here amidst, let's just call it 2020 at this point, that the whole world is experiencing. The whole world is experiencing all of this uncertainty. No one's immune to it. And yet here we are, and here you are thinking about making an investment in yourself. And you're taking the time to make that investment even now, and you're thinking about a much larger investment. And that's really cool. It sort of illustrates to me, I think, the human spirit that we're all about. Let's talk then, let's talk about the Challenge Lab. And I got, I think, some exciting things to share today. What this is almost, it's like a boutique consultancy, guys, in which myself, my associate director, Kate, our faculty lead, our associate dean of innovation, Tom Hunsaker, we're always out there talking with real global client organizations, and we're talking to them about their needs. And when we can satisfy those needs with a Thunderbird consulting team, then there you are as the Thunderbird consultants, and we want to get you immersed on site, working as full-time business consultants in front of these organizations, delivering solutions that matter and that they're going to implement. So let me get my slides to advance about that. There we are. What this is, guys, and we're going to talk in more detail, but it's a capstone immersive consulting project. It is typically a full immersion in a global location. My last bullet point there says full-time. You're not taking any other courses, which, as far as I know, in almost all of education is unique. What we find is that this is in your third semester. So at that point, Thunderbird, you've had your 2 semesters of core coursework. You've had probably an internship over the summer, and you're ready to apply all of that to a real organization. And so what students tell us, and we've been doing this for 10 years with just a great deal of success, is that they say all of a sudden all those other classes stopped and they sort of crystallized, and those lessons that we learned in the classroom, we were able to apply to a specific client situation, and we saw how those worked in practice. And it's really remarkable for students to have those aha moments in the field and with a client in which they're able to apply their learning and make it real. And then what that does is makes you more ready for the job market. It makes you more, these are experiences that go on your resume. It lets employers know that not only do you know the material, you know how to apply it. And guys, that's what employers hire for, right? They want people who have experience doing the things they want them to do. This is a team-based course, because you'd work in a team of 4 to 6 Thunderbirds with one client on one project for that one module. You are supported by Thunderbird faculty and staff, usually from campus. And so we want you as the leads of the project. You have us, you have the faculty as your guides. You have, let's say, a safety net, but this is sort of somewhere in between your class and the real world, in which you're able to apply things in the real world, but you still have all of that support from the Thunderbird campus. So it's kind of a safe space for that. I'm going to stop here and I think just tell a story about what this class looks like, and also how Thunderbird has adapted to the pandemic in 2020. In January, and this is sort of the life cycle of one of these projects. In January, I was in Lima, Peru. This was before the pandemic was global, meeting with all sorts of companies there. And one of those companies was the AGE group. It's A-J-E, AGE in Spanish. And they're actually the 4th largest Latin American multinational. It's a beverage conglomerate, grew out of rural Peru almost 40 years ago, and now it's headquartered in Madrid, Spain, and in Lima. The AGE group had consulting questions for us, a project. They wanted to focus on their global franchise strategy and how they work with their franchisors and bottlers, in ways similar to Coke and Pepsi might, but AGE had done it differently. They have brands like Big Cola and others that unless you're from some of those countries, you might not know, but AGE works on a kind of a low-cost basis. They don't try to compete with Coke in terms of marketing. They compete in terms of cost, and in that way they had grown. So we were going to have a cohort of students in Lima now, actually in this time. It so happens we were going to be there in June with Professor Hunsaker, myself, and the students working directly with AGE and a few other companies. Obviously, the pandemic went global, and then in around March and April, we knew we weren't going to be able to travel anymore. Other schools, and I have colleagues at other universities that run programs like this, and we all check in on each other to know what's going on. A lot of schools went ahead and punted on their global travel programs and said, look, we're just going to have to wait. I know Harvard did that, a lot of other schools, and I don't blame them at all. I think that's just part of, everyone had to adapt in different ways. But at Thunderbird, we had certainly a few students decided to wait and see if they could travel. We're going to try and travel again in 2021. But we adapted, as Thunderbirds do, and as the whole world has had to do. And this was still a project that had value to AHE. And so we went back and said, look, we're used to doing in-person deliveries. How can we do a virtual delivery of a consulting project? Because the entire consulting world, the entire business world, the entire world, frankly, has gone virtual, and they've adapted to these things. And so did we, and so did our students. And we built out processes, we brought in technologies that we needed to be able to share across large groups and coordinate everything. We built out the sort of the cadence of the course. We discussed with our clients. Global clients, by the way, have been very gracious. Everyone's living through the same thing. In Lima, Peru, they've been on lockdown since mid-March as well. They're all at home, as are we, but we come together virtually. And this team of Thunderbirds, and in this case in particular, is a group of students, some coming out of the 4+1 program, so really just coming out of their undergrad. Really smart students, did not have a lot of professional experience, but were willing to work, and smart, willing to work, and willing to take coaching and guidance from us. And that's really all we ask, guys. You don't have to come in with all the experience in the world, but if you're ready to work, we can work with that. And this team, I'm happy to say, we're almost in the 5th or 6th week of that project. I think we're in the 5th week. Just got off the phone with him yesterday, and I want to share just how proud I am and how comfortable I am with the work they're doing for a very large multinational. They're delivering a project that is really solid. They've done the work. They've interacted with the client virtually in the ways they needed to. And we're going to give the AHE group something that's going to have value to them. And we're presenting, to their head of franchises, but also to their global vice presidents and people who are really excited about the outcome of this work. So I just wanted to highlight, I think, the adaptability of Thunderbird, the graciousness of our clients, and especially the work of the students who have adapted to a COVID world, haven't they? They're going to come out of school and they're going to say, look, we know how to operate in today's world. I was on a call with Dean Cogram this morning, and we've been using the word future ready to describe Thunderbirds. And he used the word today ready, because we just got shot into the future, didn't we? And we all know that the pandemic has accelerated the changes that we've seen coming. We're there now. And so students are ready for today's world because they've lived in the business world through these projects. So that's a little bit about what this course is all about, and it's a little bit about what Thunderbird's all about. Because we adapt, and we are future ready, and we're today ready. We're living in this world. We're not trying to hide from it. So let me go on and tell you a little more. I will use practical examples whenever I can to talk about the program. Right up top, before I leave my kind of detailed slide here a little bit, most of you are looking at the Master of Global Management program, which means this is a capstone part of your curriculum in the 3rd semester, and it's a course. Let's see, it is a part of your degree requirement. So it's the word mandatory, I don't really think is the right word, because this is why people come to Thunderbird. It's not mandatory. It's a great option that you have, but it is part of your curriculum. If you're looking at the executive course or the MAL, the Master of Applied Leadership and Management, we also have this program in your curriculum, but it is a 1-week program, and it's an elective. And that's because obviously if you're an executive, you know that you're typically working another job. We'd love to, but we can't get you off campus for 3 weeks for a full-time immersion in a full-time project for an entire module. And also you have a lot of great travel options in those programs. So just a couple of details there. We have adapted this course to fit every degree program at Thunderbird. So more about the program and what it is. Again, as with the AHE story, you're working with a real client on a real project that delivers results that are to be implemented. This is the real world, guys. And we work with diverse organizations, corporations, nonprofits, small and medium-sized enterprises, governments, usually looking at growth questions, growth, sustainability, new markets. It's really all over the map. Anyone who has a business need that we can satisfy, we will talk with that client. I love this picture, and I love to use images. This team was in central Angola when this picture was taken. That's an Angolan government minister. Those are executives from ExxonMobil, or ExxonMobil's affiliate in Angola, which is SO Angola. And those are Thunderbird students. And what this team was doing really illustrates what Thunderbirds are all about. They were working with rural farmers in the interior of Angola to understand how they were implementing SO Angola's and the government's rural development programs, because that was a need that, of course, the gas company or Exxon will sign a contract with the government, and then they also commit to doing community development. And so this team was working in Portuguese in the first place, and then working through a translator even to work in the local language with farmers. They were gathering insights and strategizing. And so they're out in the farm fields, right? In the mud, if it was raining, in the dark, if the power was out, it didn't matter. They were getting the work done through a couple of different languages. And then by the end, they were back in the capital, Luanda, speaking with Exxon executives and government folks, translating those results to the executive level. And if I had to, that's a great encapsulation of Thunderbirds, because you're able to work in that farm field, okay, with your feet in the mud, having meaningful interactions with folks who are still living sort of at a subsistence farming level. And then you're able to come in and speak to the executives in the capital and speak at that sort of that high level. So you're able to sort of insert yourselves anywhere in, let's say that, that's a nice picture of sort of the whole global economy, right? The entire pyramid. You're able to be effective in all of those environments. And that's what Thunderbird's all about. This is, I mentioned, a team size of 4 to 6. It is a team-based project. It's highly collaborative. We pick teams so so the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And you don't have to have every skill set appropriate for the project, but you need a team, makes the whole. And a lot of the learning comes from learning to trust your teammates, learning what you're good at, learning what you need to allow other people to be good at. And I've literally had students in our offices literally crying, and these were tears of joy, but just so sort of overwhelmed by the team experience and how they had to learn to sort of let go and trust and work together. And that's what you have to do in the real world when you graduate.
Hey, Charles, can I interrupt and ask a question that a student has?
Yeah, of course.
It says, clients are only from private sectors, ? Or is there any opportunity to work with government organizations for consultant?
Great question. And the answer is, let's see, the answer is yes. We work with multiple sectors. We're a little bit sector agnostic. If someone comes with a good challenge, we'll take it on. But we do, and maybe this is someone who's looking at maybe the global affairs pathway, and I'll speak to that in a little bit. We do take a survey of you all when you come in to understand where you're going to concentrate your Thunderbird degree, and we develop projects appropriately. So many are private sector because most of our students are focused on global business and or global digital transformation. But we also, as you may know, Thunderbird has a regional center of excellence. We have a program in Washington, D.C. So we have access, and we work with those types of, the government players or your multilateral institutions. So yeah, a little bit of everything. And yeah, that's a good question. Let me hop back here. Faculty mentored, student delivered. And just in short, this means that, and I touched on it earlier, the faculty support you, but we want you in the field. You're the lead. You form your team, you lead the engagement with your client. You have that safety net. but this is a big part of our program in that, we put you in front, and we don't necessarily go with you into the field. And, that's not always easy. And we put a lot of trust into you all as students to do that. Adam knows this, and we've had to work on situations where we do give a lot of support to students in the field. But for the most part, we want you guys doing this on your own, and you have us there to help. We are truly global. I love to, this is Thunderbird, guys. We love to show maps, okay? This map represents everywhere we've done projects in the past, as well as our regional centers of excellence. You see sort of Phoenix is the headquarters. And so I can't promise you that we'll have a project in one of these places while you're in school here, although we almost certainly will have them at the regional centers of excellence in places like Tokyo, and in Mexico City, and in Geneva, Washington, D.C. But again, it's been, over the past 10 years of doing this, it's been a real pleasure to put students in really challenging places, be it Colombia, Ecuador, Nigeria, Guinea, Nepal, Cambodia, and to have students really succeed in those challenging environments outside of the classroom. And Adam, thanks. Let me know if any other questions come in as well.
We actually have one more.
Yeah.
Global affairs concentration. The question is, the destination should be developing countries or developed economies are also eligible?
Good question. I just gotten there in my slide.
Oh, perfect.
Well, I want to take that question specifically. It's an interesting one. Short answer is both. Let me try and give an example. We have a project that we're hoping to accomplish with Counterpart International, which is an international NGO based in Washington, D.C. And so they're looking at their portfolio of global programs and how they can make them more fiscally or financially sustainable. And so that's one where you would be based in Washington, D.C., but working on a global NGO project. But we also have a lot of projects where you go directly to the field to work with, let's see, I'm trying to think of an example right now, but to work with perhaps an NGO or an organization that's implementing something on the ground, such as that, like the Angola example. So it could be either one, really depending on the experience that you want to have. Hopefully that answers the question. Maybe either or. So in project areas here, really, if I'm looking at this last class of Thunderbird, I think 75% or so of students were between global business and global digital transformation. And so most of those are private sector, some large corporations, some medium and growing, and those sort of mid-sized growing companies are really, really exciting, because in those, they're probably multi-million-dollar concerns, but they're still small enough where you can engage directly with the CEO and the executive leadership. So those are, and really influence company growth strategy. Global digital transformation is really interesting, guys, because again, with COVID, we've all just been shot straight to the front of this. Everything is a digital transformation project now, just about. And we really hardly talk to clients anymore where some aspect of digital transformation, whether it be digital marketing or whether it be using AI and tech systems to empower scale and growth across an entire country. Let's say expanding telemedicine across Colombia and backing that up with sort of AI systems to crawl the data and give intelligent outputs to it. Let me see. Adam, I may have seen a question pop up, so just let me know. Global entrepreneurship, again, are those sort of mid or small and growing companies. Sometimes we work with entrepreneur accelerators and incubators. You guys may be familiar with those, but they might bring together multiple growing businesses and which are really a positive force, growing employment and changing kind of the base of economies around the world. And we might, in global affairs. So those would be, as somebody asked a question, sometimes those are global NGOs, sometimes it's economic development directly on the ground, and sometimes it's maybe working with a multilateral or a bilateral institution in Washington, D.C. And Thunderbird is also the UN Global Compact's partner. UN Global Compact, and especially I think it's Network USA, is a group of companies that have signed on to help the UN implement the Sustainable Development Goals. I believe there's 16 of them. Somebody on the call could correct me if I'm wrong. And those companies are committed to implementing some form of what those SDGs look like in their company. And so they've come to campus, they've learned from Thunderbird professors, they've worked with Thunderbird for Good, which is one of our project coordination areas here at Thunderbird. And in some cases, we've said, hey, how can we get a consulting team to work with you to actually implement these SDG projects in your organization? So let's see. Just a few, I'll talk through some examples. I know that's usually a fairly effective way to communicate what we do. Same as with the AHE group case. I'll just pick a couple of these here, maybe IBM and maybe Winrock. That's an interesting one. IBM, this is a few years ago, came to us and said, look, this is the head of IBM Global. And they said, look, we've got what the teams ended up working on. This is actually 3 Thunderbird teams in succession because IBM liked this work so much. IBM has a core of sort of global cross-border deal experts that sit maybe in the US and in Europe, but that are also, some of them are getting closer to retirement. What they wanted to do was push that core of knowledge about global cross-border deals out to their salespeople in different countries. So that, let's say, a salesperson sitting in Korea knows how to write cross-border deals with China and Japan. And so that they don't have to send someone who's maybe lives in Seattle all the way over there to help them figure that out. And so it was really kind of a knowledge sharing question across the whole organization. We worked on this again with Professor Huntsaker, who's now the Associate Dean, was the lead faculty, and 3 Thunderbird teams worked on this in succession to the point where this actually won an internal award in IBM for innovation. So a real interesting success case there. And again, working directly for the head of IBM Global. We gave some nice recommendations to those students, by the way, when they graduated. So that wasn't too bad. I'll take a completely different example, and someone was talking about global. This is a good example of a global affairs project in action. USAID, of course, is the United States, large international development organization. They typically subcontract with organizations like Winrock International to implement their programs around the world. In this case, Winrock International implements one called Value Chains for Rural Development. And the specific country case here was Myanmar. And so what they do is work with agricultural companies and producers in Myanmar. And Myanmar has some really interesting products and crops that have a lot of value on the global market. And these are things like sesame seed, tofu, coffee is another good one. And a lot of times they have organic certification. And some of these are really fantastic products. But what USAID and Winrock are trying to do is connect them to broader value chains. And so what our students will do, and we've done multiple projects with them, is go work with these individual companies and show them how they can be more strategic in approaching their market and address their kind of individual questions. So some of these, it might be a 50-person agricultural processing organization in Myanmar that's growing, that's doing a lot of business, but they don't have a formal business background to help them understand, hey, should I do a joint venture with this guy from Thailand who's calling me on the phone every day? Do I need to drive the truck to the farm gate to pick up product? Do I need to answer the phone from Walmart who wants a crate or a container shipment of this stuff once a month? It's kind of evaluating opportunity cost, and how these companies can be more strategic in approaching their partners, opportunities, and value chains. And so students we've done this for a few years now, and you could imagine immersing with savvy, but really still growing farmers and executives in Myanmar. It's a real nice example of Thunderbirds being cross-cultural, but still delivering business value. A few more client examples I think might be worth taking. Let's see. We work with, you see a lot of the big names here. Absolutely. Honeywell, the Rio Tinto, Libby. I could probably talk about just about any one of these. I kind of wanted to talk just a little bit about the Fundación Bolívar de Vivienda, which is a partner of ours in Colombia. It's the foundation of the Grupo Bolívar de Vivienda, which is one of the largest conglomerates in Colombia. And the Fundación runs a great program with mid-size entrepreneurial and growing companies to give them management education and mentorship over the course of a year. And then we will bring in Thunderbird teams to help take those companies to kind of the next level in their growth. And so these are actually companies I want to mention that we're working with in the coming year. And so if I look at a few of these, just to give you an example of the type of work students do, and they'll fly, hopefully, again, that we can fly in 2020 or we'll work virtually, but they'll go to Bogota, Colombia, which is a really fantastic place if you've been to Colombia. One company is called Green Loop. They are a green building consultancy. And so, they help with, in the US, we have a LEED certification, you may know, and they work with, the equivalent there in South America. They're very good at this. They help companies, go green with their buildings. They are trying to expand their service offering to other Latin American countries. And that's what they've asked the Thunderbird team to come help with. Another example is Help Technologies. And they actually, I sort of hinted at something like this earlier, they provide the software and some of the AI platforms for telemedicine and healthcare. And so they're looking to make the business case to health insurers in Colombia for how this technologies can make healthcare provider services more efficient, more effective, provide better outcomes for patients, and save the health system money. So that's what a Thunderbird team is going to do, is make that business case. And then finally, another client we're working with in Colombia is called Café Devoción, which is a specialized coffee cafe and company and exporter. So Colombian coffee, who doesn't want to work there? So I wanted to give you that range of kind of, you see some of this future ready type of material. You work in technology for healthcare and making a business case to an insurer. You can work in green building and how to expand globally across borders. That's certainly something that Thunderbirds want to get into. And yes, let's work with the specialty coffee producer and how can they grow and expand their business and get in coffee to other places of the world and benefit Colombian farmers. So that's a little bit of how we like to get engaged. Actually, no, there's one more I want to add, because to sort of round out this portfolio, we're also working with the Grupo Bolívar, which is the conglomerate I mentioned, and the bank. They're one of the largest banks in Colombia. And they're looking at how can we use mobile money services, which are now much more than just the Western Union window at the grocery store where someone can get money, because now these things run on apps in your mobile phones. So they want to look at how can we use these apps, and they have one of their own, but how can they make them more effective and make money flow easier across borders, particularly for individuals, because this has to do with remittance flows. So big source of income for regular Colombians, and the bank wants to help make this easy. So a Thunderbird team is going to take a look at that. So you get kind of that whole range there, just in the space of Colombia, in terms of some really compelling, future-ready, digitally enabled or powered projects. Okay. So let's see. I'm just checking my time here. This slide is worth showing to you guys because we talked about how this is a real consultancy. Really, it's guys, this is a real consultancy embedded in your business education, and me and Kate and Professor Hunsaker, we're kind of the leaders. We might be the managing consultants, but you're the consultants. So my top bullet there, we're out there working with organizations to understand what they need. They provide a scope of work. We have a discussion about that. We work with faculty to make sure we have, an appropriate mix of projects for you all based on your degree and concentration areas. Like we saw affairs, entrepreneurship, digital transformation, and global business. We train you on campus, so you have a full year's worth of education and internship under your belt, but we're not going to just throw you out there on your own. We have a process, and that process is summed up by these 3 boxes here. This is a general consulting process. You have to do your data discovery, you have to validate your opportunities, and you have to refine those so that the client can actually use them. And what I might say about this is that if you notice, this is not your average class. Okay, we're not asking you to do a report on remittances in Colombia. We're asking you to understand everything you can about remittances in Colombia and globally, really within the first couple of weeks, because then what you're going to do is actually apply that to your client, something that your client can use. And it sort of doesn't matter if you're smart as all get out about the subject matter, you have to apply it. And that's where this course is fundamentally different than anything else you do. I tell our students all the time, guys, no one's gonna fail this class. If you in fact give us B-level work, we're gonna give it back to you, and we're gonna work with you to make it A-level work, because we succeed together. We succeed for the client. It's not a normal class. You're graded on how you respond to what the client gives you in the prompt. You're not graded on, how well you got to understand the material. That's just the base layer, and then you apply it. This is all about application and working with your client. And then of course you come back to campus. We polish those up with faculty, and we celebrate. And we celebrate as a campus and as a community, the work that everyone has put into this. All right, so that's the end of my talk for right now. That's my email, and then some of you may have already worked with Kylie, who's the recruiter here, so she's also available to answer questions, and of course Adam's here too. So let me stop there, and Adam, let me know what we should do now.
Yeah, so thanks, Charles. That was incredible and very helpful. We do have 2 questions for you. So the first one is, can students push for a client that we would like to take on a project with? In other words, can we work with the GC directors to seek out a client of interest?
Really good question. I'm glad it came up. Short answer is yes. The longer answer is come talk to us pretty soon once you get on campus, so that we can talk to that client and understand if it meets the academic requirements and all that. So I want to be careful in answering that question, because we don't need you to go out and find your own client. That's our job. That's what we do. But if you have a good client, we're always open to talk about that, and we'd jump in and maybe you'd help us make the introduction, and then we'd talk to that client and see if there's something that meets the client's needs and that meets our needs as an academic institution.
Our other question is, do we have any opportunities in South Korea for the digital transformation concentration?
Well, I don't ever want to promise that we will have anything, because for you all, we're probably a little over a year away from what that would be.
Yeah.
It does come up. We have a hub. We have that regional center of excellence in Korea. We have some really interesting alumni over there. I'll give you an example. We had talked with Coupang, I think Coupang, so forgive me if I've mispronounced it. But they're actually one of the fastest growing startups in Asia. I want to say they had a $10 billion investment from SoftBank recently, one of the largest they've made, and are growing really rapidly. And we were talking to them about how could they sort of basically continue 100% year over year growth into this year because we have an alum who works in their market growth department. That one's not quite on the books yet, so I don't know if it will be. So there's nothing, I don't want to speak to anything specific. We don't quite know what that project pipeline will look at like a year from now. But those are yes, we have those types of conversations with those types of clients.
Great. And Global Challenge Labs are not specific for every concentration, correct?
No, that's a really good question. I would, in fact, encourage students to use the Challenge Lab to maybe round out experience that you wouldn't have got otherwise. So be open to it because it's more about the experience and learning how to apply solutions to a real client than it is the actual subject area. In fact, I'd almost think of it, your internship is where you want to specialize, right? If you can do a great job in an internship for a company that you want to work for upon graduation, then you dramatically increase your chances of getting hired by that company on graduation. And that's where you specialize. And you can say as an individual, I'm going to really focus on this company. I want to seek my internship out. The GCL, the Challenge Lab is more of your chance to broaden experience. And we've even had examples where a student who was, let's say, solely interested in South America as a career choice, he took a project in Southeast Asia, working on something else, but he was sort of hesitant. He's like, I'm going to work in South America. I know that. But when he got around to interviewing for his job in South America, they took a look at his resume and said, tell me about this really interesting experience you had in Southeast Asia. And of course, it's such an intense experience. You tend to speak about it really well in interviews and with employers. And it really jumps off the resume a lot of times because some of these are really interesting geographies and projects. In his interview, they talked about that global experience in Asia, and therefore he was actually given a job. He still got the job he wanted in South America, but instead of being a regional manager, they gave him a global management position, still based in South America, but with more responsibility and more salary because he had added some more global experience to his resume.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all of that. I'm just looking at our time, and I do want to respect all of your time. We're right at 45 minutes. So thank you so much, Charles. This was incredible information. I just want to close to let you know that we do have your contact information, and we'll follow up with you today or tomorrow with some additional information about our Global Challenge Labs. Also, we do still have some webinars happening in June for both prospective and incoming students. If you've not yet applied to our program and you're still considering it, just want to throw it out there that it's not actually too late to do that. We can accept and admit students all the way through early August. Not preferred, but we can do it. Also providing GRE GMAT waivers for high achieving students, and scholarships are still available for fall 2020. So I'll send you these details. If you are joining us in the fall, we look forward to meeting you and providing service to you and just seeing you thrive at Thunderbird. So thank you again for your time today. And we hope to soon welcome you to the Thunderbird Global family, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.